Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. Now, I want to remind you that you should subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show on wherever you like to consume podcasts, and that could be iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, or if you like the video version, it's on YouTube on my Heidi Thorne channel, so don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's get started with today's show. Now, I got a good question from one of my blog readers about setting up a separate page or website or Facebook page for his or her book. Now, that can be quite an expensive venture, even though it seems cheap in theory. Let me explain what is happening here. Now, I have other friends who they have a website for the rest of their business. And so then when they publish a book, they definitely want to put that on their website. So some of them set up a separate page on their website, which isn't too bad. Some of them go for the whole website that's just dedicated to the book, and then others set up a separate Facebook page for their book. Now, of the three, I think just setting the page up on your website is the least expensive, but I don't even suggest that. Here's what's happening. When you set up a separate online presence for your book, that requires time and effort and maybe expense on your part. Even if it's just a page on your website, you have to make sure that that's maintained, all the links are working all the time, and then what happens, as with most self-published authors, they want to publish more than one book. So then they end up having page after page after page on their website, which causes a lot of confusion for their website visitors, and it's a lot of work. Now, I have over 20-some print, ebooks, and audiobooks going. Imagine if I had to maintain a separate page for all of those. That would be a lot of work. So I think that's one reason not to do that by setting up a page on your website for each book. I think that's crazy. Then there are those who want to set up a Facebook page for it. And that gets even worse, because then what you have to do, because you don't want it to look like a dead page. And granted, after the book launch, the page will probably just sit there, because you're not going to be posting new content all the time. The book is the book. And unless you create a new edition, which probably isn't going to happen during the first couple years of the book's life, it's just going to sit there unless you want to actively post on that page. I think you're better off getting your regular Facebook business page as an author Facebook page, and then just have announcements about all of your books. And the same problem occurs as you would if it was your own website. If you have to have a Facebook page for every book you write and publish, it can get quite unwieldy. Like me, if I have 10, 20 books, I would have to maintain that many pages, and that's a lot of work. A lot of people think, well, it doesn't take that much, and honestly, it doesn't take that much to get it started. It takes a lot to keep it going. Last and worst is creating a separate website for your book, and I've seen authors do this. This is the worst in terms of investment, because It's not your regular business site generally. And I just saw somebody do this like last week. I mean, seriously, the people are still doing this. So you have a separate website just for the book. You might have your own website for your author site. So there's two websites you have to maintain and host, which is probably not going to be free. I know my hosting fees and domain fees, because you're going to have two different domain names, for one for the book and one for your regular website. Those aren't free either. So you could be looking at maybe $100 per site per year. So multiply that by your site plus your book site, so that's maybe $200 a year. And it's not just $200 this year, that would probably be $200 in perpetuity. So that can get pretty expensive. And as we've talked about before, you're probably not making a heck of a lot of money on your self-published books. So any expenses are going to cut into the royalties you're going to make and revenues off of your book. So what should you do? Well, I've seen some of the very big authors. They have their author site and they just list all their books, especially those who are very prolific and have lots of books. They don't have a separate page for every one of them. It's crazy. That is crazy. And that's a lot of work. So if even the biggest authors out there aren't doing separate pages for their books or separate websites, why should you? And the other thing that I do is that I just redirect all of my book info on my website directly to my Amazon author page that I set up on Author Central. That is free. It lists all my books and people can buy there, and it's completely hands-off for me. So what's not to like about that? So if you have not set up an Author Central author page on Amazon, do so now. Do it now so that you have some place you can direct people who want to buy your book. Now, you should include some links on your website, such as see my books, or maybe if you just have one book, buy my book on Amazon. Some link, of course, you want to feature on your website, but you don't have to make it a feature of your website. So I hope that you have found this tip helpful and that it will save you money on your book promotion costs. And if you did find it helpful, please wander over to iTunes and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. If you found this tip helpful, I would appreciate it if you would wander over to iTunes and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And while you're on iTunes, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like to listen elsewhere, I'm also on Stitcher and Podbean if you like to listen to your podcast there. And of course, my video podcast is on YouTube. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel. You can listen to my podcast on your Alexa with the AnyPod skill. And I would really, really appreciate it if you would share the Heidi Thorne Show with your friends on social media. Now, if you want to see my books, of course, you could go to my website and click the books link. But even easier, I'm just going to tell you to go to Amazon.com, search for my name, Heidi Thorne, and my author page will come up and you'll see all my books. And if you're interested in just audiobooks, my books are on, of course, Amazon has them, but they're also on Audible and iTunes audiobooks. If you want to connect with me, my website is HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode. And in the meantime, have a great day.